She was cold, starving, and invisible to a world that didn't care, an alien girl abandoned on Earth, ready to give up everything for a single meal. Until one stranger's unexpected act of kindness changed her fate forever. What follows is a powerful journey of survival, hope, and finding purpose in the unlikeless place. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and show a little love with a thumbs up by liking the video. Now let's jump into the story. The wind howled through the narrow streets like a ghost looking for a home. Nara pulled her thin, torn cloak tighter around her shoulders, but it didn't help much. The fabric was barely holding together. Her steps were slow, dragging through. The cold, her bare feet numb against the pavement. She had not eaten in days. Every breath felt sharp in her chest, and her legs trembled beneath her with each movement. The city around her buzzed with life-flashing lights, loud voices, endless motion. But no one saw her. Or worse, they saw her and quickly looked away. Her skin, once a soft shade of glowing lavender, now looked dull and dry, almost lifeless. Nara wasn't from this world. That much was obvious to anyone who bothered to look. But in this city of steel and noise, no one had the time or patience to care. People crossed the street to avoid her. Some whispered when she passed. Others simply ignored her altogether. Hunger gnawed at her stomach like a wild animal. She tried to stay calm, to stay proud, but the ache was constant and cruel. She felt weaker with every step. Her body, once graceful and strong, was now shaking and small. Then, she caught a smell warm bread. Her nose lifted toward it without her even thinking. Across the street, a small bakery glowed softly through. Fogged windows, inside, golden loaves sat neatly in rows. Nara's mouth watered instantly. She crept toward the glass, pressed her forehead against it, and closed her eyes, pretending for just a second that one of those loaves hers. The memory of food felt so far away now. Her fingers brushed the window gently as if touching it would bring the bread closer. But then, a loud voice barked from behind the counter. The baker had seen her. Again. He stormed over and waved his hand angrily, shouting at her to go away. Nara backed up, her cheeks burning with shame. She didn't argue. She just turned and stumbled back into the shadows, her stomach twisting painfully inside her. She found a narrow alley and sank to the ground. The bricks behind her were cold and rough, but she barely noticed. She pulled her knees up to her chest and rested her head against them. Tears stung her eyes, but she didn't let them fall, not yet. Her thoughts drifted to her home planet. She remembered the glowing fields, the soft hum of life all around, the way her people moved with peace and grace. But all of that was gone now. She had been exiled, thrown away like trash, told she wasn't worthy of a future. And now here she was, crouched in an alley on a planet where no one wanted her. She was alone, she was starving, and she was slowly breaking apart. For a long time she just sat there, eyes closed, trying to block out the hunger and the cold. But something inside her was cracking. A thought she had tried to avoid kept coming back. She could offer herself. Her body. She hated the idea, hated that she was even thinking about it. On her planet, the body was sacred, a symbol of honor. But here, dignity didn't fill a stomach, pride didn't keep you warm, and kindness from strangers didn't seem to exist. Her breath came in short, shaky gasps. Could she do it? Could she really offer herself for food? She shook her head at first. No, never. But then her stomach growled again, louder this time, more painful. Her arms wrapped tighter around her middle. Maybe, just once. Just enough to eat. She didn't want to die here, cold and forgotten. Her hands curled into fists, nails pressing into her palms. Tears finally fell, silent and hot. She would try. Just once. Nara stood up slowly, her legs weak and wobbling. She stepped out of the alley and looked around. The streets were mostly empty now. A few people hurried along, heads down, coats pulled tight. And then she saw him. A man walking with purpose, coat flapping in the wind, hat pulled low over his face. Something about him made her pause. He didn't look cruel. His steps were calm, not rushed. She waited until he was close, then stepped into his path. "Please," she whispered, voice rough from dryness. "I'm hungry." The man stopped. His eyes lifted beneath the brim of his hat, landing on her face. Nara looked away, ashamed, and forced the words out. I can give you something. In return. Just help me." There was silence. Her heart pounded so hard she thought it might break her ribs. She waited for him to say something cruel or walk away like the others, but instead, his voice came quiet and steady. "You don't have to offer anything," he said. "You need food." "That's enough." Nara looked up, startled. His face wasn't angry or disgusted. It was kind. He shrugged off his coat and wrapped it around her shoulders. She gasped at the warmth. It felt like a blanket of mercy. "Come on," he said, gently. "Let's get you something to eat." And just like that, for the first time in a very long while, Nara felt the tiniest spark of hope. The night had never felt so still. Nara sat curled on the couch, wrapped tightly in the coat the stranger had given her. It smelled like old paper and rain. The room was small and quiet, with walls the color of faded cream and furniture that looked as worn as the man himself. She hadn't said much after they arrived. She was still too shaken, unsure if this was real or just a strange, comforting dream. But the food had been real. She could still taste the soup on her tongue, still feel the warmth spreading through her stomach. It had been so long since she'd felt that full. The man had introduced himself with a quiet smile. Jace. He didn't ask many questions, didn't press her for details, and didn't stare like others did. He just pointed to the couch and told her she could stay the night. Now, as the wind pressed against the windows, Nara stared at the ceiling, struggling to sleep. Her mind raced with fear and confusion. Why was he helping her? What did he want in return? The city had taught her that kindness was always a trap, and yet, he had done nothing but help. When morning came, sunlight filtered in through the thin curtains, painting soft golden lines across the floor. Nara blinked and sat up slowly, the blanket falling to her lap. Her body ached less. Her head felt clearer. She stood cautiously and stepped toward the small kitchen, where Jace was already awake, a mug of tea in his hand. "Morning," he said without turning. "There's hot water if you want some." She hesitated, then nodded. "Thank you," she said softly. Her voice still cracked from disuse. Jace looked at her over his shoulder. "I figured you might need a place to land. I don't have much, but I've got a friend who runs a shelter. She might be able to help." Nara looked down, gripping the warm mug he handed her. "A shelter?" He nodded. "It's safe, and it's a start. No pressure, just maybe it's time for something better than sleeping in alleys." She didn't know why, but she believed him. Maybe it was the calm in his voice. Maybe it was the tea in her hands. She gave a small nod, and later that morning, they walked together to a place tucked between two cracked buildings, a wide brick structure with a faded green sign that read Everlight Haven. The inside buzzed with quiet energy. Volunteers moved back and forth with trays, towels, and paper forms. The air smelled like oatmeal and cleaning spray. At the front desk stood a woman with sharp eyes and strong arms. Her name was Mara, and she didn't waste time with small talk. "Yours?" Mara asked, nodding toward Nara. "She's her own," Jace replied calmly, "but she needs a place." "Thought maybe you had room." Mara looked Nara over. "What's your name?" "Nara," she said, voice barely above a whisper. Mara nodded once. "You can help in the kitchen. Food and shelter come with the job. You work hard, we won't have a problem." Nara blinked. "Just like that?" She nodded quickly, unsure what else to say. Mara turned on her heel and led her down a hallway lined with doors. The room she was given was small, just a bed, a chair, and a hook for clothes. But to Nara, it was a castle. She sat on the bed and let the silence fill her. This was the first room that had been hers since she arrived on Earth. The next few days passed in a blur. Nara worked in the shelter's kitchen, peeling potatoes, washing dishes, and wiping down counters. Her hands were clumsy at first, but she learned quickly. No one asked about her past. No one cared that her skin was lavender gray or that she barely spoke. Here, everyone had a story they didn't want to tell. She met a few of the others who worked in the kitchen. One was a young woman named Lynn, who had a quick smile and faster hands. She cracked jokes that Nara didn't always understand but appreciated anyway. Another was a quiet older man named Theo, who hummed to himself as he chopped vegetables. They didn't ask where she was from. They didn't ask why her eyes shimmered silver in the light. And for that, Nara was grateful. Every evening, after her shift, she would return to her small room, exhausted but clean and full. The ache of hunger was gone now, replaced by a different kind of longing, one she didn't fully understand. A need to belong. To be more than a nameless shadow in a world that had once looked at her like trash. Sometimes Jace visited the shelter, bringing books or supplies. He always made time to check on her, asking how she was doing and listening to her short replies. With quiet care. One day, as they sat on a bench outside, she finally asked, "Why did you help me?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked at the sky, then said, "Because someone helped me once, when I had nothing. And because no one deserves to be forgotten." Nara looked at him, truly looked at him, and for the first time in a long while, she felt seen. The days turned into weeks. Nara began to smile more. She wasn't ready to talk about her past, yet not the planet she left. Not the exile, but she started to believe maybe the future didn't have to look like the past. Maybe with people like Jace and Mara, she could rebuild. Not everything, but something real. Something that belonged to her. Nara's days began to follow a rhythm she never expected to find again. Each morning, she woke before sunrise, washed her face with cold water from the small sink in her shelter room, and dressed in borrowed clothes that didn't quite fit but kept her warm. The kitchen at Everlight Haven greeted her with the soft clatter of dishes, the hum of the industrial fridge, and the gentle murmur of sleepy volunteers. It was strange at first, being surrounded by people who didn't know what she was. They saw her as a quiet, polite girl who worked hard and kept her head down. And for now, that was enough. Mara remained tough but fair, watching everything with sharp eyes. She didn't smile often, but when she did, it meant something. Lynn, the fast-talking girl with a big laugh, had taken to Nara quickly. She nicknamed her Moon Girl because of her silvery eyes, and Nara didn't mind. It felt like a joke between friends. Even Theo, the silent man with a tired face, started nodding in her direction more often. These were small things, but they began to grow roots in her heart, roots that dug deeper every day. She was still cautious. Her past clung to her like a shadow. She hadn't told anyone the truth. Not about the exile, or the dying planet, or the way her people had decided she wasn't worth saving. But here, among strangers, she was beginning to feel something she hadn't felt in a long time. Safe. Outside the shelter, the world remained cold and chaotic. The city was loud, impatient, and full of faces that didn't care. But inside the shelter's worn walls, there was warmth and purpose. Nara found comfort in the simple task, stirring soup, chopping vegetables, handing out trays. She liked being useful. It reminded her she was still alive, still part of something. One rainy afternoon, as she scrubbed at a tray near the back of the kitchen, someone tapped her shoulder. She turned to see a teenage girl, soaked from the storm, eyes wide and scared. Mara stood behind her, holding a towel. "This is Ivy," Mara said. "She just came in. Thought you could show her around." Nara blinked, surprised. "Me?" Mara nodded once. "You know the ropes. And you're kind." That word struck something. Inside her, kind. She had never thought of herself that way. Nara led Ivy to the back hallway, pointing out the showers and spare beds. The girl was quiet, barely speaking above a whisper. But when Nara offered her dry clothes, Ivy took them with shaking hands and whispered, "Thank you." Later that night, Nara sat beside her on the edge of a bunk, sharing a dry sandwich and an awkward silence. Eventually, Ivy spoke. "Why are you helping me?" Nara thought for a moment before answering. "Because someone helped me once." It was the same answer Jace had given her, and now it was hers too. Days passed, and Ivy began working in the kitchen beside Nara, peeling carrots and sweeping floors. She was clumsy and slow at first, but she tried. Nara recognized the same. Fear in her eyes, the fear of being unwanted, forgotten. And so she encouraged her, gently correcting her mistakes, praising her when she got it right. Slowly, Ivy began to smile. One morning, as Nara was folding laundry in the shelter's basement, Mara walked in holding the clipboard. "You've done good work," Mara said without looking up. "Not just in the kitchen. With Ivy, with all of it." Nara shrugged, unsure what to say. "We need someone to help organize the kitchen, keep things running. Make sure we don't run out of potatoes again," Mara added with a rare grin. "You interested?" Nara stared at her. "You want me to lead?" Mara finally looked up. "You've already been doing it. I'm just making it official." Nara didn't answer right away. Her mind filled with doubts. Could she do this? Could someone like her exiled, unwanted take charge of anything? That evening, she walked with Jace to a quiet park nearby. The air was cool, and leaves rustled gently above them. She told him about Mara's offer. He listened, nodding slowly. "Do you think I can do it?" she asked him. "I don't think," he said. "I know." Nara didn't reply, but something in her chest warmed at those words. Back at the shelter, she accepted Mara's offer. The job wasn't glamorous. It meant making schedules, checking inventory, and dealing with broken toasters. But it also meant she was trusted. She had a place, a role, a purpose. She began spending more time helping newcomers, just like Ivy, people who arrived with empty hands and tired eyes. She didn't always have the right words, but she offered what she could: a warm meal, a clean blanket, a soft voice that said, "You're not alone." The shelter became more than just a roof. It was a space where broken pieces were gently gathered, where people were seen for who they were, not what they had lost. And in helping others find hope, Nara discovered something deeper inside her: self-strength she didn't know she had. One night, as she walked home from a late shift, she passed the same bridge she had once stood under, starving and invisible. She paused, looking over the city lights reflected in the river. She remembered the girl she had been, shaking in the cold, ready to give up. And then she thought of Ivy, of Mara, of Jace, of the roots she had grown in this strange world. She smiled, just a little. She was no longer a stranger. The shelter buzzed with quiet activity as Nara moved through the kitchen, tying her apron and checking the food list for the day. Outside, snow had begun to fall, dusting the city in soft white. The cold crept in through the old windows, but the kitchen was warm with the scent of soup and fresh bread. Over the months, this place had changed, and so had she. Once, she had wandered the streets with nothing, no name, no purpose, no home. Now she was the one people came to for answers, for comfort, for direction. She never asked for the role, but it fit like a coat that had been waiting for her all along. Ivy stood at the sink, laughing at something Lynn had said while drying dishes. Mara walked by, handing out schedules, her usual gruffness softened by the small smile she gave Nara. Everything felt steady. For the first time, Nara could breathe without fear pressing down on her chest. She still hadn't told anyone where she was really from. She still looked up at the stars at night, wondering if her old world had changed, if anyone missed her. But she no longer ached to return. Earth, for all its chaos and flaws, had become her home. One evening, as she swept the kitchen floor, Mara approached her with a frown. "We've got a problem," she said, handing over a folded letter. Nara opened it and scanned the words. The city was cutting funding. The shelter was at risk of closing within months. Panic curled in her stomach. "They say donations are down," Mara added, rubbing her temple. "We'll have to fight for this place, or we'll lose it." Nara nodded, though her mind raced. She thought of all the people who would be left out in the cold. She thought of Ivy, of Theo, of herself. This place had saved lives, including hers. She couldn't let it disappear. The next morning, Nara stood in front of a crowded room at City Hall. Her hands shook as she held a small stack of notes, but her voice, when she began to speak, was clear. "This shelter isn't just a building," she said. "It's a place where people are seen, where they're fed, cared for, and reminded that they still matter. I know that because I was one of them." She looked around the room at the officials and staff. "I came here with nothing. I was cold, hungry, and alone, and someone helped me. That help gave me the strength to stand here now. If we take this shelter away, we take away hope from people who need it most." She didn't share everything. She didn't mention the planet she had fled or the people who abandoned her. But she didn't need to. Her truth was enough. After the meeting, a reporter approached her. A local story went out about the shelter, and something unexpected happened. Donations came in. Small ones at first, $10 here, $20 there, but they added up. Volunteers doubled. Old friends of the shelter returned to lend a hand. And little by little, the light stayed on. Jace came by one night, carrying a box of canned food and a tired smile. They hadn't talked much in recent weeks. He'd been busy, she'd been overwhelmed. But now, as they sat on the back steps watching snow fall in soft flakes, the silence between them felt gentle. "I saw the news," he said. "You did good." She shrugged, though a small smile tugged at her lips. "I just told the truth." He glanced at her. "That's what makes it powerful." They sat quietly for a moment longer before he spoke again. "I wanted to tell you something. I wasn't always put together. A long time ago, I was where you were, lost, broke, scared. Someone gave me a job at a little shop when no one else would. That's how I got started again. You helped me remember that." Nara looked at him, her heart full. "We keep passing it on, don't we? That's the point," he said with a nod. "It's not about saving the world. It's about saving each other." In the months that followed, the shelter not only survived, it grew. With new support, they expanded their services, opened a community pantry, and started workshops for job training and support. Nara trained new volunteers and listened to stories from people who reminded her of herself. She no longer saw her reflection as a stranger. One afternoon, Ivy found her on the roof of the shelter, staring up at the sky. "You okay?" Ivy asked, sitting beside her. "I was just thinking," Nara said, "about where I came from. Ever want to go back?" Ivy asked. Nara shook her head. "Not anymore. I thought I had to go back to matter. But I was wrong. I can matter here." Then, after a pause, she added, "I might send a message though, not asking to return. Just to say, I'm still here. I made something. I made a life." Ivy leaned back, eyes on the clouds. "That sounds like something worth saying." That night, Nara typed a short message into a small transmitter she had built from scraps. Just a few simple words broadcast quietly into the stars. "I was not lost. I was just beginning." She hit send, not knowing if anyone would hear it, but feeling lighter for having said it. In that quiet moment, Beneath the sky, Nara smiled. She was not who she had been. And this world, this imperfect, beautiful world, was hers now. She had made a place among strangers. She had found her roots in the kindness of others. And now she was the one giving light.